What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Cjthecheesedj here, and we are back on Jurassic World, giving you guys a tips and tricks video. Now, this is mainly for people that haven't played the game just yet, but if you have, and you come across these tips and tricks videos, and you learn something new, well, there you go. It was worth your time. Alright, so we're going to jump straight into it. Now, these are in no particular order, and they're in no particular order. There's no other real way to sum it up. So let's jump straight into it. Now, do take into mind that these tips and tricks are for people who haven't played the game just yet. Alrighty, so let's get into it. So tip number one is that you can actually manually request contracts. Now, if you come into your contracts section on your island, you can see down the bottom there, you're actually able to request a new contract. If you hit X on this, the contract will pop up for your particular faction that you want to level up with. You can see we've got entertainment all the way to the max, so we're going to pick a security one. Now, you can accept these contracts or you can decline them. You don't actually have to do them if you don't feel like you're ready, and you can then sometimes get more contracts later on the line without even manually requesting them. However, after a minute or two, if you don't have 3 contracts or you've already fulfilled one, you can then request some new contracts to get your faction up with that particular faction up faster, your reputation up. That's the word we're looking for. So that is tip number one. Now, tip number 2 is as well something to do with the contracts. So on each island, you get given 3 missions, 1 mission for each faction. Now, you can see here we've got security mission 5, entertainment mission, and science mission. Now, you want to try and do these missions on the island. You want to try and get them done as fast as possible because they actually unlock extra rewards for you. You can see the reward for completing this entertainment mission is the color scheme of Vivid. For completing this science mission, we actually got the Mammochosaurus, which is the final dino that we needed to complete our collection. We now have all 42 dinos. However, if you do not do the particular mission on an island, it gets a little bit harder to go back and do it, because especially if you manage to get to, say, like Isla Tucano, and you haven't done the missions on Isla Muerta or Isla Mentaceros, you actually have to go back and do those missions before you can do the missions on the Isla Tucano. So you actually have to complete the missions on the island before you have access to the new missions. Now, these missions all grant you new rewards, as well as that they also make you level up your reputation with each faction, which then also increases the amount of rewards you get, because each faction gives you different rewards and whatnot. So it all comes down to that. Now, you can see here we've completed these missions as well. Research Team Bravo, the Steep Color Scheme, Electrified Heavy Steel. These all come in use later down the line when you're building up your various parks on the various islands. So that is pretty much it for number 2. Now, for tip number 3, it's when you start on a brand new island. Most of the islands aren't too difficult when you start off on. However, there are islands where you will try and, you'll take a bit of damage because your funds aren't all there. Isla Tucano, for that, is a very good example, because Isla Tucano, you start in the negatives with the amount of money. Same as Isla Muerta. Isla Muerta isn't as hard as Isla Tucano because you do have some money to work with. However, in Isla Tucano, you do start in the negatives. So when you first start on an island, the first dinosaurs that you're actually going to want to incubate are the Struthiomimuses. Now, the Struthiomimuses you can easily house together. They don't require much space, and, well, they're just easy money makers. They're easily able to attract guests into your park. Now, as well as that, once you've gotten a few Struthiomimuses in, you can then throw in some Triceratopses, some Myosauruses, some Edmontosauruses, or the Coryosauruses as well, because they then boost your park as well, and herbivores like being in big groups. Now, obviously, you do want to increase their rating as well, so mainly just give them color schemes that will increase their rating very easily. And these guys are really easy to look after. They don't really have that much of a comfort threshold. It's all the way down the bottom. So the Struthiomimuses is one of the dinosaurs that you want to use to get your park up and running when you first start on a new island. Now, tip number 4 is to make sure that you keep an eye on your dinosaur's stats. You can see here you've got the stats of the Stegosaurus. His health is at 100, his food is somewhat in between halfway, his water is all the way at the max, but his comfort is at 0%. Now, you need to make sure that your dinosaurs are comfortable, otherwise this will happen. You can see at the top of our screen, everything's just gone to shit. There's dinosaurs everywhere, there's guests being killed, everything is red. There's no power because dinosaurs are just shredding through everything. Funnily enough, the only dinosaurs that are safe are the Dinosaurs, which are the carnivores. So you do want to keep an eye out on their stat levels because this is effectively what makes you run your park. If your stat levels are 0 or horrible, then you're not going to be able to run a park successfully because your dinos are going to keep escaping. They're going to keep killing your guests. And you need to make sure that their grassland, their forest, their population, and their social numbers are all met, as well as their water and food. So do take that into mind when you first start a park, otherwise you'll end up with a park like this, just everything red. Now, as well as that, we'll just quickly go over what these stats actually mean while we've got you guys here. So population is effectively how much of any dinosaur you can put in one enclosure. You can see the population of this Pentaceratops is currently 3 to 9, its ideal population. So you can effectively store up to 9 dinosaurs in here without the Pentaceratops losing control and his comfort diminishing by a large amount. Now, the social means the particular amount of dinosaurs of that species. So you can see there we've just reached the social section of the bar with our Pentaceratops. Now, effectively that means that you can only have 3 to 5 of the Pentaceratops together. You can see there where it says social group. That means you need 3 to 5 of the Pentaceratops for it to feel comfortable and not lose comfort meter. So that is a big thing to take into mind as well. Now, each of these dinosaurs do have different social and population groups, so do take that into mind as well. Now, tip number 5, make sure that you actually have food and water in each enclosure. Sometimes you can forget, I've forgotten on many occasions, to put water parts into the park. Now, to do water, you actually come into your landscaping section and you can go across here and you can easily add water galore. Now, depending on the amount of dinosaurs that you have in the enclosure, it's all dependent on how much water you will need. Now, you can obviously take away the water as well if you so choose to. However, do take into mind that you will need water in all your enclosures because, well, the dinosaurs obviously need to drink. They need to stay hydrated, so do take that into mind as well. Now, also, you need to make sure that there are foods sources in your enclosure. Whether it be other herbivores for your carnivores or the feeders for your carnivores, you need to make sure that there is food in each of the enclosures. Now, if you're unsure of what the actual dinosaur eats, you can come into the hatching bay and find one that works. Okay, well, you can go into the hatching bay and it'll actually tell you what the dinosaur requires out of which feeder. So obviously your sauropods are going to require the tall herbivore feeders, and your other ground-based herbivores that are closer to the ground require the ground herbivore feeders. With carnivores, you can either give them the carnivore feeder or the live bait feeder, or you can just feed them other herbivores if you so choose to. It all comes down to you and how you want to run your park. Now, tip number 6 is to do with the power system. The power system in the game sometimes can get complicated if you don't know what you're doing. When I first started, I had no idea what I was freaking doing, but I figured it out. So essentially what you want to do is you want to find a nice flat area where there's plenty of space where, you've already got a power station. Many of times when you go to a new island, you'll actually have power stations already set up. However, if you don't, well, you want to find a nice flat area where you can actually stick quite a few power stations. Now you can see there we've just dropped another large power station. Essentially what you can do is you can group these power stations together and you can see that there is, well, a little yellow connector thing set up there. You then need to build the pylons. So if you come into your power section, you see your power stations. You then want to go up to your pylons and it'll automatically snap onto your power station. You can see there is a pylon there. From here, you want to actually snap that pylon to a pre-built pylon that you already have for all your other power stations. This effectively means that all your power stations will be grouped up and that they will be powering everything. You can then stick your pylons around the map and then just substitute out to substations which will effectively power things in its radius. And then you'll easily have plenty of power for everything in that vicinity that you could possibly need. And if you connect your power stations up, it effectively means you will not run out of power. Now, number 7 has to do with the research side of the game. Now, when you first unlock the ability to go to a new island, and you get new dinosaurs from excavating them and searching new areas, make sure that you've actually got the proper medical treatments unlocked. So when you get to a new island, you will unlock new medical treatment. Now, you want to learn this medical treatment first, because if one of your dinosaurs comes down with the disease that you don't actually have researched, it can take a solid 3 to 4 minutes of researching before the disease is actually learned, and then you have to spend time getting your ranger teams to the dinosaur to actually treat them, and by that stage your whole park could effectively be infected with the dinosaur disease, which is a bad case, and it will very likely end in the dinosaur dying. So you don't want that to happen, so do make sure that you include the researching of diseases when you unlock new islands and new dinos as well. Now, tip number 8 has something to do with the multiple operation buildings that you can build on the islands. When you first unlock a new island, you gain the ability to obviously restart, build new enclosures, build your new centers and your operations, and get everything going. When you first go to these islands, the first things that you should build are the fossil centers, the research centers, and the expedition centers. This essentially allows you to travel to the new locations, get more fossils, and particularly excavate those fossils so you actually unlock the dinosaur's genome, which means you get new dinosaurs. As well as that, the research means you can research new research stuff, because the more centers you build, the more things that you unlock. For example, the more expedition centers you build along as you go through the islands, the more spots you'll unlock, the more fossil centers you'll unlock, the more ways you can actually excavate the fossils, because if you do not have the correct fossil center but you have an expedition center, you can't actually excavate the new fossils that you find. Now, the same goes for the research center. More research centers means more research is available for you to learn. Now, when you get to these new islands with the new operation centers, you can actually put upgrades into the particular buildings. Now, these upgrades carry across all your island playthroughs, so make sure you actually input the upgrades as you go through each of the islands, because you can then increase the proficiency of each of the buildings. For example, we've got extraction speed here and 2 inventory space slots, which means that our extraction speed of our fossils will go 10% faster, and we have an extra 2 slots for our fossils. Same goes for the expedition centers. You can increase the amount of fossils and items you retrieve by 10% for each slot, or you can decrease the amount of time it takes to get the particular fossils from the location. Same goes for the research centers, where you can improve the amount of research speed by 10% or decrease the research cost by 10%. So it's a great way to go about upgrading your particular centers across all islands. And like I said, these do carry across to the rest of the other islands. Now, tip number 9 is that you can actually house carnivores together. Now, this current enclosure is not a very good example to show you guys, but in this enclosure we actually have an Indominus Rex. Now, this Indominus Rex is actually housed with 3 other Dilos. Actually, I think it was 5 Dilos. They're just all kind of running amok around the island. You can see there's the Indominus Rex, there's another Dilo, and there's another Dilo. Altogether, we had 5 Dilos and an Indominus Rex running around this enclosure. Now, you can effectively house them together and they will not fight the smaller kinds. Same goes for the Raptors and the Dinos. However, if you do start putting in like the Majunkosauruses or the Ceratosauruses, they will try attacking the Indominus Rex and the smaller dinos. So do take that into mind as well. But if you, say, get a T-Rex or a Spino in here, you can actually house Dilos, Raptors, and the Dinos with those guys. So that effectively allows you to make more money, add more dino variety to your park, and just make it easier on yourself. However, do take care when the damage structures takes into effect, because you will then have a bunch of carnivores running around your island, eating all your guests. And you definitely do not want that. Now, finally, tip number 10 is when you build a park and you build enclosures and you build viewing platforms, well, you obviously need to put places for the guests to enjoy themselves, such as fast food outlets, shopping, restaurants, bowling alleys, whatever the heck you want to put there. Now, the cool thing about this is that you can actually hit your R1 button or change tabs, and you can actually change the amount of staff that are in each center. Now, what this effectively does, you can't see it because we don't have any power, so we're going to jump to another island. But what this effectively does is it increases the amount of guests that you can have in each facility. Now, the maximum amount of guests that you can have in each facility is 900, and obviously the more managed staff that you have, the more it's going to cost you to actually run the shop. But you can adjust the amount of money that you sell the particular item for However, you don't really need to worry about that too much because once you get your park up and running, the restaurant won't actually take much money up. Any of the shops that you put around your park won't take much money up. You'll only lose about 1,000 per minute, which really isn't that much money in comparison to how much money you will be making once your park is properly up and running, unlike my park, which is currently in shambles at the moment. So guys, that'll conclude today's tips and tricks videos. That's 10 tips and tricks for Jurassic World. Here you go. You can see here, this fast food restaurant is operational, and you can actually increase it up to 900 guests. Now this goes up by about 120, 150 each tick, so do take that into mind as well. But you can see with each management staff that we are increasing, we actually lose more money. However, like I said, you can increase the amount of money that you sell these items for. However, do take in mind that the actual guest number will decrease the more you increase this. You can see that the guests number is slowly decreasing the more we increase the price of the product. Now you can also change what product you want to sell as well, and you can see that also brings in more guests. So guys, that'll conclude today's video. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe down below for more. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Indominus Rex says bye. Actually, that is a dead Chasmosaurus. Let's just scrap that from the video.